You got to work like you are broke. I don't care how much is in your bank account. I don't care how many followers you got. I don't care how many degrees on your wall. That's not the grind I'm talking about. I'm talking about waking up with a hunger every single day, like your survival depends on melatonin. You see, comfort is the killer of greatness. Once you get a little success, you start sleeping in. Once the bills are paid, you stop pushing, you stop calling, you stop creating. And that's the moment the world passes you by. You know what broke taught me? It taught me humility. It taught me to listen. It taught me to go hard because I didn't have a plan B. When you broke, you don't have time for excuses. Broke forces you to wake up. Broke forces you to make something out of nothing. So don't you dare despise your broke season. That's where your character's built. That's where your character is built. That's where the winners are born. Don't run from broke. Run through it. Some of y'all waiting to feel good to work hard. Nah, work like you ain't got no other option. Like your dream is the only thing standing between your family and generational poverty. Hustle like you're trying to eat today. Hustle like if you don't make that call, if you don't put in those hours, if you don't show up today, you going back to square one. Because guess what? You might. And let me tell you something. The money will come. The recognition will come. But you can't chase that. That's temporary. That's fake. You gotta chase impact, chase excellence, chase legacy. Every day you gotta be asking yourself, who am I becoming? Not what do I have? Because what you have can be taken. But who you are, that's what lasts. I need you to understand this. Your sacrifices today will write your freedom tomorrow. It's grind now, shine later. It's sleep less now, rest later. While they party, you plan. You plan. While they scroll, you study. While they make excuses, you make moves. You gotta want this like your next breath. You gotta grind like you're behind, even when you're ahead. That's the mentality. That's what it means to work like you are broke. So get up. Stop acting like you got time. Stop acting like it's guaranteed. Move with urgency. Think like a soldier. Hustle like a savage. Love like a king. Lead like a general. Grind like you are broke. Comfort is the enemy of growth. The moment you get comfortable is the moment you stop pushing like you used to. When you're broke, there's this fire in your belly. You don't need an alarm clock because your reality is your wake-up call. You don't need motivation because life itself is pushing you. You've got bills to pay, mouths to feed, and dreams that's still out of reach. You don't get to hit snooze when you're broke. You get up, whether you're tired or not, because if you don't grind today, tomorrow's going to look just like yesterday, and that's not an option. That's what it means to work like you're broke. But see, the problem is, the moment you start getting a little bit of comfort, the hunger starts fading. You start believing you made it. You got a car now. You upgraded your phone. You posted that win on social media and people started clapping for you. And suddenly, the same grind that got you that success begins to slip. You sleep a little longer. You hustle a little less. You start avoiding the pain that once shaped you. Comfort becomes the drug, and you don't even realize you're addicted. The truth is, comfort breeds complacency. You don't grow in comfort. You don't develop character in luxury. Diamonds are made under pressure, not on vacation. When you had nothing, you were dangerous because you had no fear. You were willing to take the risks. You weren't worried about embarrassment. You didn't care what they thought. But now that you got a little status, a little validation, you're hesitant. You're playing safe. And I'm here to remind you that you can't afford to lose that edge. You can't forget where you came from. You can't forget what it felt like when no one believed in you, when your bank account was negative, when you were borrowing gas money just to get to work. That energy, that urgency is what made you unstoppable. You gotta stay hungry even when you're full. You gotta grind like you're broke, even when you're paid. It's a mindset, not a bank balance. The people who win long term are the ones who never stop acting like they've got something to prove. Look at the greats, the athletes, the moguls, the leaders. They never rest on yesterday. They never get so comfortable that they stop showing up with fire. Kobe Bryant won championships, but he was still in the gym before the sun came up. Eric Thomas, he's one of the top motivational speakers in the world, but he still wakes up at 3 a.m. to get his day started. Why? Because they know that the minute they get too comfortable, they lose the edge that made them great. They refuse to let comfort become their coffin. When you were broke, you had clarity. You didn't waste time. You didn't scroll for hours. You didn't get distracted by nonsense. You were focused because you had to be. That pressure produced power. That struggle gave you structure. But now, you're trying to hold on to comfort, and comfort is slowing you down. You're trying to preserve the little success you got instead of chasing the next mountain. You're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And that's the difference between those who rise and those who stall. You can't afford to fall in love with the small wins. You got to stay in love with the process, the grind, the climb. Because when you fall in love with comfort, you start settling. You start saying, this is good enough. And let me tell you something. Good enough is the death of greatness. You got to develop the discipline to stay uncomfortable. That means showing up when you don't feel like it. That means pushing even when no one's watching. That means choosing the harder path on purpose. Because while everyone else is chasing ease, you're chasing evolution. While they want applause, you want legacy. While they're sleeping, you're building. That's what it means to work like you're broke. You keep your spirit in hustle mode. You keep your mind in the struggle. Even when your life starts to change, you remember the days you cried yourself to sleep. You remember the nights you prayed for just one opportunity, and you use that memory as fuel. You wake up every day with the mentality that you're still climbing. You act like you got everything to prove, because the truth is you do. Not to them, to yourself. You prove to yourself that you're not just a one-time success story. You prove that your work ethic is consistent, not seasonal. You prove that no matter how far you go, you'll never stop being a person who outworks everybody in the room. That's why you can't let comfort win. That's why you got to keep moving like you're broke. Because when you work like you're broke, you stay creative. You stay urgent. You stay focused. You stop taking things for granted. You stop feeling entitled. You stop wasting days because you remember a time when days were hard, when the struggle was real. When survival wasn't a metaphor, it was your life. Being broke isn't just about not having money in your bank account. It's not just about living paycheck to paycheck or struggling to pay bills. Being broke is a mindset, and it's one of the most powerful places you can operate from. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's raw, real, and full of pressure. When you're broke in the mind, you're in a place where you refuse to accept average, where you're allergic to entitlement, and where you're willing to fight for every inch of progress. Most people think being broke is a curse, but if you flip the mindset, it becomes the greatest advantage you'll ever have. Because when you got nothing, you learn how to create something out of it. When you got no handouts, you learn how to work. When the world tells you a no, you learn how to get back up and go after that yes on your own terms. Some of the hungriest, grittiest, and most focused people in the world are the ones who started with nothing. Why? Because they never had the luxury of depending on comfort. They didn't have a safety net to fall back on. All they had was hustle. When you live in survival mode, you begin to think different. You look at every opportunity like it could be your last. You treat every connection like it matters. You're not arrogant. You're not picky. You're focused. You're disciplined. That broke mindset, that's what builds warriors. That's what produces people who won't stop until they win. Because when you're broke in the mind, not weak, but broke, you see the world differently. You don't expect things to come easy. You expect to fight. You expect to sacrifice. You expect to do what others won't. See, there are people who have money in the bank, but their mind is rich with laziness. They got just enough success to get comfortable, and now they're operating from a place of softness. They don't wake up early anymore. They don't grind like they used to. They don't attack life like they're still trying to earn it. But the people who last, the people who rise to the top and stay there, are the ones who keep a broke mindset even when their situation changes. That doesn't mean they stay poor. It means they stay humble. It means they stay hungry. It means they don't ever allow themselves to forget the days when they had to fight just to eat, just to survive, just to be seen. When you've been broke, and I mean truly broke, broken in finances, broken in spirit, broken in opportunity, you learn how to value time. You learn how to value people. You learn how to move with urgency because you don't have time to waste. You don't scroll mindlessly for hours when you're broke in the mind. You're too busy trying to figure out your next move. You don't make excuses. You make plans. You don't look for comfort. You look for growth. You look for growth That mindset is powerful because it forces you to level up day after day. And the truth is, that broke mindset will take you places that talent never will. You might not have the most connections. You might not have the best resume. You might not have the top tier education. But when your mind is built in struggle, your grind becomes undeniable. People underestimate broke. They associate it with weakness, but they forget that some of the greatest success stories were born out of nothing. Oprah was broke. Tyler Perry was broke. Eric Thomas was homeless. High school dropout, no father, sleep in abandoned buildings. Broke in every way. But that broke mindset built a level of discipline, of toughness, of resilience that money can't teach you. That's why when people come from nothing and finally make it, they're dangerous. Not because of what they had, but because of what they've been through. They understand the cost. They understand the grind, and they never take it for granted. But the scary part is what happens when people lose that broke mindset. The moment they feel like they've made it, they relax. They slow down. They start thinking they're better than the grind, and that's when it all starts slipping. Because if you don't protect that mindset, life will lull you into average. You'll forget what it felt like to struggle. You'll forget what it felt like to hustle. And when you forget that, you lose your edge. You lose the part of you that was hungry enough to outwork everyone else in the room. So the goal isn't just to work when you're broke. The goal is to work like you're broke even when you're not. You train your mind to stay in that place of hunger. You never let yourself feel like you've arrived. You stay a student. You stay desperate for growth. You wake up with that same energy you had when you had nothing. Because that mindset, that broke mindset, is what separates the one-hit wonders from the legend. The people who touch success once from the people who keep climbing, keep building, keep climbing, keep evolving. It's not about being poor. It's about staying grounded. It's not about lacking resources. When you hustle like you got nothing to lose, you stop playing safe and start moving with boldness. You stop waiting for the perfect time, the right opportunity, or the green light from other people. You understand that everything you want is on the other side of effort, sacrifice, and risk. When you got nothing to lose, you're not scared of failure because failure doesn't take away anything from you. It teaches you. You're not afraid of rejection because nobody gave you anything to begin with. That mindset, that raw determination, that refusal to be passive, that's what puts you in a different league. The people who move like they have nothing to lose are the ones who create momentum out of nothing. They don't wait for a handout. They build their own ladder and climb it step by step. They don't care if it's messy, ugly, or unpolished. They show up. They show up broken. They show up unqualified. They show up scared, but they show up anyway. And that's what separates the average from the elite. Most people walk through life trying not to lose what they have. They're playing defense. They're trying to protect their pride, their ego, their comfort, their reputation. They're afraid to look stupid, afraid to fail, afraid to be judged, afraid to be judged. But when you hustle like you got nothing to lose, that fear disappears. You're not scared of what people think because they're not paying your bills. They're not walking in your shoes. They're not the ones staying up late, grinding, sacrificing, bleeding for your dream. So you move with the kind of freedom that most people would never understand. That's the freedom that comes from knowing you don't owe anybody anything and nobody owes you. You earn it. You build it. You take every shot like it's your last. Not because you're reckless, but because you understand how valuable each opportunity is. You don't waste it because you know how it feels to have nothing. That energy is dangerous. That energy creates pressure. That energy creates urgency. You don't procrastinate when you got nothing to lose. You don't sit around debating whether you should chase your dream. You chase it like your life depends on it. Because in many ways it does. When you hustle with that level of desperation, you become relentless. You become focused. You become laser sharp in your execution. You stop trying to be liked and start trying to be effective. Stop talking about what you're going to do and start doing it. Because you realize that action is all you have. That nobody is coming to save you. That this is your life and your responsibility. You own your time. You own your results. And if it's going to happen because you made it happen. You can always tell who's moving like they got nothing to lose. They're the ones who stay late when others go home. They're the ones who keep pushing even after they're tired. They're the ones who don't quit after one and no. They take the rejection and use it as fuel. They get up with more hunger the next day. They don't shrink when things get tough. They rise. They don't fold under pressure. They grow. That kind of hustle doesn't come from motivation. It comes from necessity. It comes from being tired of being average, tired of being overlooked, tired of being stuck in the same cycle. So they decide to break out, not by chance, but by choice. Some people are waiting for the right circumstances to give them permission to go all in. But the truth is, if you wait, you'll never move. The people who make it, the people who change their life and the lives of others are the ones who go even when it's dark, even when it's dark, even when it's unclear, even when it's risky. They're not worried about losing because they already know what loss feels like. They're not afraid of being broke because they've been broke before. And if they have to go through the fire again to reach the next level, they'll do it with no hesitation. That's what it means to hustle like you got nothing to lose. You stop protecting your comfort zone and start attacking your potential. Every single day, you move like this might be your only shot. You treat every opportunity like it's sacred. You show up with energy, with intensity, with full focus, because you're not chasing a paycheck. You're chasing purpose. You're not doing it for the applause. You're doing it for the impact. And when you hustle from that place, it changes everything. You stop looking at problems as obstacles and start seeing them as training. You stop waiting for someone to believe in you and start betting on yourself. You stop counting the cost and start counting the rewards. Because if you give everything you got, what do you really lose? Maybe you fail. Maybe you fall, but you learn, you grow, and you rise again stronger. This mindset is about living on purpose. It's about refusing to coast. It's about choosing to give your absolute best regardless of the outcome. Don't chase the money, chase the mission. When you wake up every day with your eyes on money, you're going to lose the bigger picture. Money is a result, not a purpose. It's the byproduct of value, not the source of fulfillment. Self-fulfillment. If your only goal is the bag, then your decisions, your grind, your passion, all of it will be temporary. The moment the money doesn't show up fast enough, you'll quit. The moment it gets hard, you'll walk away. The moment people stop applauding, you'll question everything. But when you're chasing a mission, something deeper than a dollar, nothing can stop you. A mission gives you focus when distractions come. A mission keeps you going when the money isn't flowing. A mission will wake you up at 4 a.m. without an alarm clock because you're driven by purpose, not profit. Money is important, no doubt. It pays the bills. It opens doors. It provides freedom. But money is not the why. It's the result of doing your purpose at the highest level. When your mission is clear, your work becomes sacred. You don't just show up for a paycheck. You show up to make a difference. You put your heart into everything. You treat people with respect, not because they're clients, but because they're part of the impact. You sacrifice because you believe in the outcome, not because someone promised you a bonus. You go the extra mile, not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you're carrying something on the inside that refuses to settle for less. When you chase the mission, you stop comparing yourself to other people. You're not in a competition with them. You're in alignment with your calling. You're not worried about who's ahead or who's behind. You're focused on fulfilling your role. That's power, that's peace. Because you're not moved by trends or opinions. You're guided by conviction. Every rejection becomes redirect. Every obstacle becomes training. Every delay becomes development. Why? Because when you're on a mission, everything is working for you, even when it doesn't feel like it. But if you chase money alone, your motivation will dry up. You'll start making decisions based on fear instead of faith. You'll start cutting corner, compromising your values, selling out your vision for short-term gain. And eventually you'll feel empty because money can buy access, but it can't buy peace. It can buy attention, but not love. It can buy options, but not purpose. You can have $1 million and still wake up feeling lost. Because deep down, you know the grind wasn't real. It wasn't built on performance. It was built on performance. You weren't creating from the heart. You were chasing applause. You weren't building legacy. You were building ego. And that kind of success is fragile. One storm can take it all away. When you chase the mission, though, you're rooted. You're grounded in something bigger than yourself. And because of that, you're unshakable. You keep moving forward when no one's watching. You stay disciplined when no one's clapping. You keep showing up with excellence even when you're overlooked. That's the kind of mindset that builds empires. That's the kind of attitude that builds champion. Because it's not just about what you get, it's about what you give. You show up to serve. You show up to inspire. You show up to transform. And when you live like that, money becomes a tool, not a guide. It becomes a vehicle to fuel your vision, not a trap that owns your soul. You can always tell who's chasing money versus who's chasing mission. The money chasers burn out fast. They hop from job to job, idea to idea, trend to trend, always searching, never satisfied. They get excited when they win, but devastate when they lose. Their joy is tied to their income. Their confidence is tied to their results. But the mission-driven people, they move different. They're steady, they're committed. They can go through seasons of lack and still show up strong, still speak life, still grind with excellence. Because their fire doesn't come from the outside, it comes from within. Your mission is what will carry you through the hard days. It's what will remind you why you started when you feel like quitting. It's what will keep you anchored when life shakes you. And the beautiful thing is, when you truly chase your mission, the money will follow. Maybe not right away, maybe not in the way you expected, but it will come. Because the world pays attention to people who are on fire for something real. People are drawn to authenticity, they're drawn to passion. They're drawn to excellence, and when you operate in that space consistently and boldly, doors open, favor finds you, resources show up, but none of it owns you. Because your heart is on the mission, but the money, not the money. Sacrifice now, feast later. That's the mindset of champions. That's the mentality of people who refuse to live an average life. The world will tell you to enjoy now, to chase comfort, to do what feels good in the moment. But the truth is, greatness doesn't come from doing what's easy, it comes from doing what's necessary. It comes from waking up early when you don't feel like it, saying no to party so you can grind in silence, turning down short-term pleasures because you're locked in on long-term goals. Sacrifice isn't punishment. Sacrifice is an investment in your future, in your family, in your purpose. Most people want to win, but they're not willing to give anything up. They want the rewards, but they're not willing to go through the fire. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't party like you made it and expect to grow like you're still hungry. You gotta choose. There's something powerful about being willing to delay gratification. When you can tell yourself no today because you believe in a bigger yes tomorrow. That's discipline. That's maturity. That's vision. It's easy to spend every dime you earn, to binge every show, to scroll for hours, to say, I'll do it later. But every time you choose comfort over calling, you're stealing from your future. You're trading long-term greatness for temporary relief. And the people who win, the people who build real legacy, they understand that they embrace the grind not because it's glamorous, but because it's necessary. They sacrifice sleep, comfort, validation, even relationships sometimes, not out of pride, but because the mission demands it. You don't get to build something extraordinary by living an ordinary life. There's a season in your journey where you have to go without. A season where it feels like no one sees you. No one is clapping. No one is supporting. And that's where most people quit. But what they don't understand is that season is sacred. That's where your character is being developed. That's where your habits are being forged. That's where you're being prepared for the weight of the success you're asking for. You can't skip that part. You can't microwave greatness. If you want to feast later, if you want the freedom, the abundance, the impact, you got to be willing to grind now when it's lonely, when it's hard, when it feels like nothing is happening. Because that sacrifice is what's setting the table for your future. The people at the top didn't just show up and win. They went through years of saying no to what others said yes to. While others were relaxing, they were studying. While others were complaining, they were executing. While others were scrolling, they were strategizing. They didn't get there because they were lucky. They got there because they were willing to live differently. They were willing to do what others wouldn't so they could eventually live how others could. That's what it means to sacrifice now and feast later. It means being okay with being misunderstood. It means knowing that not everyone will see your vision. It means choosing a path of resistance because that's where the reward is found. You have to stop expecting easy. Stop expecting results without struggle. Stop expecting the elevation without cost. Every step up comes with a price. Every breakthrough requires something from you. Maybe it's your time. Maybe it's your ego. Maybe it's your comfort. But nothing great comes for free. So you gotta ask yourself, what am I willing to give up so I can go up? What am I willing to deny now so I can build a life I was born to live? That's the question. And it's not just ask once, it's ask daily. Every day you wake up, life is asking, are you going to sacrifice or settle? And let's be real, sacrifice doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it's isolating. Sometimes it makes you question everything. But the people who stick with it, the ones who don't quit when it gets hard, they're the ones who look back one day and realize it was all worth it. Every lonely night, every early morning, every time they chose to grind over the distraction, it added up, it multiplied, it positioned them for a life they didn't have to escape from. A life of purpose, peace, and power. That's the feast. That's the reward. That's what you're working for. You don't have to stay in sacrifice mode forever. It's a season, not a life sentence. But if you shortcut that season, if you cheat the process, you'll cheat the result. You'll end up with surface level success, the kind that looks good but feels empty. But if you lean into the pain, embrace the discipline, and stay locked in on your vision, you'll come out the other side stronger, sharper, and ready to receive everything that's meant for you. So stop running from sacrifice. Stop complaining about the grind. Start seeing as a gift the price of entry for the life you say you want.